Welcome to the start of our webinar series on RUX Rentals and RUX Service. Today we're going to be going over rental units, pricing, and packages. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Matt Spory. I'm a sales engineer here at RUX Software. Got my email up there as well. I'll go through some slides at the end after the demo as well with my LinkedIn, my email again. So if there's any questions that aren't addressed on this call, or you want more of a tailored demo, you know who to reach out to. All right, so before we get into it, a little bit about RUX. For those of you who don't know us, maybe you're a legacy customer, found us on LinkedIn. So RUX is a Microsoft Solutions partner in business applications, recognized for meeting Microsoft's highest standards. For decades, we've put companies in control of their assets and finances through sophisticated business applications that leverage the D365 Business Central platform. All right, quick agenda for today. So again, we already went through the welcome and objectives. We're going to go through a quick overview of rental units, so how we can link those rental units, some visibility, grouping up rental units for similar units, and then we'll get into rental packages, the different types of packages, and pricing there, and some key differences and use cases. Then we'll get into pricing. So that'll start with rental periods and terms, some different options for start and end, proration, optimization, and then periodic usage and standby. Then we'll go back to the rental unit card, show you how we can store and calculate prices for different customers, price groups, and assets. And then we'll wrap it up with a Q&A. I already said this, but for anyone that joined late, any questions that come up during the live demo, feel free to throw those in the chat, and we will do our best to answer those as they come up. All right, so quick overview of RUX Rentals before we get into the live demo. Just some solutions and features here. So RUX Rentals is going to allow you to view and manage your equipment availability and status in real time with intuitive graphical calendar. We're not going to show the availability calendar today. That'll be in a later webinar in this series, but we do have some pre-recorded demos that we can show if you're interested in that. All right, we can track rental equipment movements, transfers, returns, including on-sale items, and then monitor that equipment rental utilization by unit, by group, and also log maintenance and other associated costs. All right, we can rent and sell equipment with flexible terms. Again, we'll be going over what those terms are, how we set those up today. Just some quick examples would be hourly, best price, prorated, or user-defined. Really anything that you need to match how you do business, what your customers need to be invoiced on, we can handle it there. All right, and then we can save time with one-time or recurring rental invoicing from a single, easy-to-use screen. Again, we won't get into the rental invoicing worksheet on this webinar, but we do have some pre-canned videos, and we'll be definitely going over that, I think, in the next webinar in this series. All right, and with that, we're going to go ahead and get right into the live demo. Close this up here. All right, you should all be seeing my Business Central screen here. Again, to start, pull up Teams meeting. All right, so again, to start, we're going to go over our rental units. All right, so like I said, a few different ways that we can create, manage, and link these rental units. We can link these to either nothing, like you'll see on a lot of units here. We can link them to fixed assets if you're wanting to track depreciation costs, acquisition costs, useful life, and ROI of that asset or group of assets over the lifetime of an asset. We can also link rental units to Business Central items, so bulk items, serialized items, or just GL accounts, or again, not linked to anything. Again, fixed asset will definitely be the most popular, especially at the group level. So a rental group is just a way to manage similar assets all under one group, right? This way, if we're pushing out any pricing updates, attributes, anything like that, we can manage it at the group level and push those changes out to all the units in the group. All right, so this wheel loader GRP unit, this is the group level, and then I've got, in this case, 5 of these actual rental units on hand. All right, so that's One way that we can track availability if you're wanting to reserve out specific units, probably going to be more popular for that heavy equipment, more expensive assets that you maybe don't have as many of. In the case that you have, 100, 1,000 of a unit, and the specific unit that you're renting out doesn't really matter. In that case, linking to a bulk item is probably a better use case, right? That way you can track how many you have on hand, how many are rented out. But when you're actually renting those out to customers, you don't need to specify the specific unit that's being rented. All right, I'll go ahead and drill in here. So at the rental group level, again, we can add our descriptions, search description, pull in a category code. So if I wanted to, filter this list out based on my rental category code, I can go ahead and do that just right here with my native BC filters. So assets or attributes and categories, just a way to group things up and reference those. Again, you'll see some posting information here. So for every unit in the group, what's my general product posting group and tax group code? Again, just making sure that these are all hitting the ledger in the same way. Right here, we can see this is the group asset, right? And this is my group number to tie all of these units together. Sub-rental and overbooking. We won't get super in the weeds on this today. Basically, what allow overbooking means is, in this case, I have 5 of these wheel loaders on hand. If I were to toggle allow overbooking on, that would mean I can, quote out and rent out on a contract more than I have available. Just basically saying there's other ways that I can meet this demand for this item should it come up, right? So maybe we're buying more of the units, if there's a need from a customer, or the more popular option going to be a sub-rental, right? So sub-rental would be if I'm, renting something out to a customer, I don't have enough on hand, let's go ahead and sub-rent however many of those that I need from a qualified vendor, and then that PO will get linked back to my rental contract. Right here, we'll see my default rental terms code. Again, we'll get in a little bit more in the weeds on the actual rental terms and prices. This right here is just saying this is a periodic end optimized term for a 28-day month. Again, that might sound like it doesn't make sense, but we'll get into the rental terms after we go through units and packages here. All right, I've also got my minimum rental duration. So this is saying if a customer wants to rent this asset, it needs to be for at least 1 day. All right, and then some details on my group here. Since this is the group level asset, I've got 5 of these. I don't have any that are out on a quote, none that are out that need to be rented, none that are already on rent, and nothing to return, right? As I start processing my rental contracts, I'll start to see these numbers change. And if I were to buy more, I'll see this group number change. All right, I can also see none of these are on rent and there aren't any reservations that exist. Service status here, we'll get into this in a later video in the series. You can see a whole bunch of my different service statuses here. I can manually set this, or if we're using RUX Rentals with RUX Service, as we're processing service for our different units, that service status will update as we're, working on the unit or performing a delivery or a return inspection. All right, if we want to take a deposit on this unit when we're renting it out, I could go ahead and pick that as either a % of the replacement cost or a specified deposit amount. And then anytime that I rent this out to a customer, they'll be on the hook for paying that deposit. All right, and then just a few other things here. So this unit is enabled for metered usage. In this case, this is probably a kilometer-based or maybe an hour-based meter that we've got on here. We'll see this one is an hour. All right, and I'll go ahead and show the rest of my my metered usage base UOMs there. All right, so this is just saying as we rent this out and as we service the unit, we're going to go ahead and capture meter readings. We might be billing by the hour that this is used, or maybe just for a maintenance standpoint, right? Maybe every 200 hours we need to do some service on this unit. That's why we'd be capturing that meter reading there. All right, we can also do periodic usage, which in this case is not enabled for this unit. All right, and then if this was linked, again, here are some of the different options here for item, fixed asset, resource, or GL account. And then if it's linked back to a service unit, I would see that here. All right, again, we'll get into RUX service in a later webinar in the series, but again, just wanting you to know the options that are available there. All right, before we get into rental packages, we've also got a rental sales kit. All right, so this is kind of a good brief introduction to the concept of packages. A sales kit would be any consumable item, GL account, anything else like that that I'm wanting to include with this unit anytime I'm renting it out. So some popular examples would be maybe I'm capturing a delivery charge, right? I could go ahead and just add a GL account or an item or a resource for that delivery charge. Or maybe, we're required to send out some safety equipment when we rent out this unit. I would go ahead, pick those items from my Business Central list here, and that'll be included by default anytime that I'm quoting out or contracting out this unit. All right, coming back here. Again, I called out fixed asset, going to be one of our most popular choices to capture that ROI. So to see that ROI on a per unit basis, I can go into my rental statistics here. All right, again, I'll see when this asset was acquired, how much that cost, how much we've depreciated, and then that net book value, the acquisition cost, less of any depreciation. All right, scrolling down, I can also see any rental revenue that we've captured here. So I'll see we've got $2,400 in rental revenue, some metered usage revenue, and then nothing on periodic usage or standby. That'll give me my total revenue earned of $25,700. All right, for those of you that are familiar with Business Central, you'll see this blue hyperlink text. That means that I can go ahead, drill into it. I can see when this posting date was, what the related rental document number was, the related invoice here, right? And I can go one level deeper if I need to do any analysis on these 3 invoices that were posted for this unit. Right, and then on to the service side, right? We can see our fixed asset maintenance cost here, any related service ticket costs and revenue, giving us that net value. And then just some more in-depth rental information here. So how many times this has been rented, average rental earned, what that average invoice looks like, annualized, how many days it's been available, how many days it's been on rent. That'll give us our time utilization. So again, here seeing a pretty low utilization on this asset. Maybe we need to up the marketing, take a look at our prices. But again, just giving you that information to know, okay, we've only rented this out for 39 days of a total 457 that's been available. Something needs to change here so we can utilize this asset more. All right, then we can also see our ROI and our annualized ROI because this is linked back to a fixed asset. All right, that's going to be it for rental units for now. I'm going to take a second and look at the chat. Looks like no questions have come through. Again, if any questions do come up, feel free to send them in the chat and I'll go ahead and take a look and I can double back on anything as needed. All right, so moving on from rental units, we have rental packages. Think of rental packages as any standard offerings that you might have, right? So grouping up your rental units, rental groups together to, again, be able to offer a standard offering here. All right, I'll go ahead and open up one of my packages here. 2 different ways that we can price our packages, one being roll-up pricing, 2 being price allocation. This specific rental package is going to be what we call price allocation. So what that means is we're going to define the price at the rental package level and then allocate that revenue amongst everything that's in the package, right? So here we'll see we've got a brad nailer, an admin charge just for handling this package, a generator, and then a shipping charge and a power shovel in here. All right, so if I go in here, not to get too ahead of ourselves, because I will come back to pricing, but I'll see the pricing in here at the group level. And then as we rent out this package, that revenue will get allocated amongst all of the rental units in the group. Right. We also have rental sales kits at the package level. So you'll remember I showed this on the rental unit. We can also go ahead and create a rental sales kit at the package level as well if there's any ancillary other BC items or GL accounts that we want to go ahead and throw in by default with this package. All right, so that's going to be option 1 is going to be price allocation. Option 2 is going to be what we call roll-up. So roll-up pricing rather than, it's because it's a roll-up. So rather than pricing at the group level, roll-up pricing is going to just take the price of all of the units or the groups within the package and then just go ahead and roll that price up to give you one price at the package level. Right? A few different things here at the lines as well. We've got lock quantity, zero price, and do not print. Right, so if I wanted to lock quantity, what this is going to do is it's going to lock this down from order entry or quote entry. So they have to select this one quantity, right? They can't change it. This would be if you had a, a very standard offering where it's going to be the same exact quantity every single time, right? So I could go ahead and lock that quantity down. We also have the option to include things at zero price, right? So if I go ahead and toggle that on, this unit will be included at zero price, and we're just going to take the roll up of the bottom two items. Again, this is heavy equipment here, so it probably doesn't make sense to include this at zero price, but this could be for accessories, again, safety equipment, if you were renting it out instead of selling it to the customer, cables, anything that's going to be lower value, and you just want to build some goodwill with your customers there. And then do not print. This would be anything if you're wanting to include it in the package, but the customer doesn't necessarily, need to know that they're getting this. So again, for any ancillary rental items, we could go ahead and not print those. So the customer's like, hey, why am I getting billed for cables? I can provide my own cables. Just avoid any of those conversations by not printing that. So ignorance is bliss for the customer there. All right. Looks like we don't have any questions in the chat, so we can go ahead and move right along to pricing. If any of you are coming here from our Feature Friday video last Friday, this should be somewhat familiar. So we're going to start here with our rental terms. So rental terms are going to be the base for how and when we invoice for our different rental units, right? So in here, you'll see we've got a ton of different options. Again, in practice, you probably won't have this vast of a list. We just like to show off and show everyone that we can handle pretty much any term scenario. All right, so we'll see in here, we've got a code and a description, very straightforward, right? Code to pick and assign on pricing, and then a description. So it actually makes sense to the end user of what this term is for, right? So we'll see here, this is a month optimized end rental, right? Period code, this is going to be how many days, how many weeks, really just the period of time that this term translates to. So you'll see here, this is going to be a standard calendar month. We can also do a 4-week or a 28-day month. Pretty standard stuff in here. You could also do a quarter, 6-month, whatever period you're wanting to charge by. You can go ahead and assign that here. Right, and then invoice type, we've got 4 different options here. So we've got start and end, which would be invoicing everything on a contract, either at the start of the contract or at the end of the contract. And then we've got periodic start and periodic end, which would be if you're invoicing on a weekly cadence, a monthly cadence, maybe a quarterly cadence, you would either be sending that invoice out either at the start or the end of that period. All right, you'll also see optimize in here. So I'll show an example of this on a rental unit. It's a little bit easier to conceptualize, but what this is going to do is it's going to give us our best price scenario. So if the customer, if we're charging by the day, the week, and the month, trying to incentivize the customer to rent for longer, this optimize is going to take the best price, whether that's 7 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, and 5 days, whatever term they actually have the asset for, giving them the best price available. And then we've also got proration, right? So you'll see in here, most of these are going to be prorating all periods. So if you want to align your invoices to the start or the end of the month, you can go ahead and prorate all periods to do that, and then charge the customer that prorated amount for that first and or last term there. All right, I'll come up and open this rental terms card here just to give you a better idea of all the options. So again, our 4 different invoice types here, whether or not we're optimizing. And then on the proration side, so everything back here was prorating all periods. We can also not prorate, right? Just charge by the month, by the week, whatever that might look like. Prorate all periods, only prorate the last partial period. So if someone returns something early and you want to credit them with the proration for that last partial period, you can go ahead and do that. And then last option here is going to be after specified period. So think of this as, rent something out for a month. If the customer returns it early, they're still going to get charged that first full month. But if they return it early in the second month, we'll go ahead and prorate that second month, but not the first. All right, and then you'll see our period code here. So again, this is just how long this translates to. So for this, it'll be a month. It could also be a week, 28-day month, day, or some of our hourly terms in here. And then when we're invoicing that, and then if there's any early billing, we can go ahead and enter that date calculation here. And then also our rental date time tracking. So if we want to track date or date and time, again, for a monthly term, we're only going to be tracking the date. If it was, one of those hourly terms, we could go ahead and track the date and time. All right, and then in here, we can summarize our rental lines and then also enforce end of month billing. So if we're wanting to bill everything at the end of the month, we can go ahead and toggle that on. All right, so again, that's our rental terms. That's defining how and when we can invoice. And then our pricing is going to be done either at the rental unit or rental package level. So I'll come back to my rental unit list here. Got one of my optimized terms. All right, I'll go ahead and look at my prices. So think of this rental price list as a menu of different prices for different time periods for your assets. Right. Again, we've got that rental terms code here to define when and how we're billing, and then the price that translates to. You'll see here the sales type is going to be set to all customers. So we can either price our units for all customers, specific customers, or at the customer price group level. So if certain types of customers get, a special price or a discount, we can go ahead and do that. Otherwise, we can just price everything for all customers. All right. So we called out the optimized terms. This is going to be one of those here, right? So we've got day, week, and month, and we're optimizing all periods here. So if a customer, and again, we'll show this when we get into the invoicing side, there's no mental math needed. We're going to handle this calculation and provide the customer the best price scenario by default. But say this customer had the asset for 7 days, rather than charging them 7 days times 25, we're going to go ahead and just charge them for the week at 150, since that'll be a better price for them there. All right, we've got 2 different sets of terms on here. So end of the contract, start of the contract, that's where you're seeing the E and the S here. And then if we're charging any damage waiver, we can add that here. On that note, I'll just go ahead and open up my rental terms code so we can see everything here. Again, this will just show me my terms, sales type. So again, those 3 options of customer price group, or all customers. If we're doing any special promotional pricing, we could add a start and end date for this price card, right? And then just control that on the invoice or on the rental contract, depending on when that contract starts, when it ends, what price the customer is getting there. And then again, this is just going to be the price for that weekly rate. All right, and then a whole bunch of different other options here. So again, everything that I've called out up to this point is pretty standard. We can also bill for metered usage. So if you remember on that first asset I showed, we're tracking and logging meter readings against that asset. So if we want to bill for that metered usage, we can absolutely do that. Let me go in and I'll find a metered usage. Fit to my forklifts here. All right, so these forklifts here are set up for metered usage billing, right? We're going to bill by the hour on a 28-day month, and we've actually got 2 levels of metered usage here. What this means is the base price is going to be $25 an hour up to 160 hours. Once the customer uses it for 161 hours, every hour above this will be at $45 an hour rather than that base price of 25, right? We can also do another level of metered usage here if we want. again, this is just 2 levels of metered usage. We can either do unlimited or up to 3 levels here. All right, so that's going to be our metered usage. We've also got periodic usage. For the sake of time, I'll stay on this one rental unit here, even though it's not set up for periodic usage. What periodic usage means is we're just going to be charging the customer for when they're actually using the asset, right? So we'll charge them a daily rate, maybe an hourly rate for the days, hours that it's being used. And then we can also charge on standby. So one price when the unit's being used, and then another price when the asset's not being used, but it's still sitting at the customer site and just on standby. Right, and then we can also charge a damage waiver. So this would typically be for like insurance purposes, right? Kind of like collecting a deposit, but if we wanted to do that damage waiver, we would add that here, pick the related period code. Usually this will just be a one-time, but could be a weekly, monthly charge as well. And then we can either do a unit price or percent, right? Actually, this one's not set up, so I can't even show it. But again, just how much we're charging for that damage waiver. All right, and then last thing here is going to be an additional fee that we can charge for. Typically, our customers will use this for like an environmental fee or something along those lines. You can use it really for whatever your use case might be. But again, really similar to damage waiver, just not going to be named damage waiver, but it'll function exactly the same. We're just charging the customer an additional fee on those rentals. All right, that brings us basically to time here. Checking the chat. No questions so far. That's fine. I've got a few slides left, and then we can get into some Q&A, and I can double back on anything if needed. All right, so we've got Q&A on there. In the meantime, as you guys think of your questions, you can go ahead and drop us a follow on LinkedIn if you're not already following us. This is going to be my personal page here, Matt Spory. We've also got the RUX software page, whole bunch of great content that we've already got out there, and a ton of more content that's in the works. So be sure to follow both of us on LinkedIn if you're not already, and you'll be getting that weekly content as well as the links for our upcoming webinars. Speaking of upcoming webinars, we've got Advanced CRM coming up. It's going to be Tuesday, February 10th. So you can go ahead and scan that QR code if you're interested in joining and seeing our Advanced CRM tool that is embedded into Business Central. Right, and that is going to be the end of it. Again, I don't have a hard stop here, so I can stick around if anyone has any questions, wants me to double back on anything. But if not, thank you everyone for joining. Hope you got something valuable out of this session today, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar and the other rental webinars to come.